Hi everybody and welcome back to another Legends of Runeterra video and gameplay. Today I have a new deck concept that I've come up with recently called Frozen Treasures. I'm still working on it, but the idea is still there, I think, and one that is kind of unique and not used very much. We are focusing this deck around buffing our units, but we're specifically running a 3-set of Jae Madarda, who even though he was buffed 2 patches ago now, doesn't really see a lot of play still. He's somewhat underwhelming at the moment. And that might be just because of the state of the game where there's a lot of aggro elusive decks. So with this next patch, it may be a little bit different, but Jae Madarda, in my opinion, is still not used very much. And it kind of does take a deck specifically centered around him in order to make him work. And with this deck, what we're doing is focusing on buffing him with spells. Spells specifically from the Frejlord, who have a ton of buffing spells like Take Heart, Fury of the North, Bloodsworn Pledge, and Elixir of Iron, as well as the Starlit Seer. Now, with the spells at least, Jae Madarda will, when he's targeted and survives, you draw a card. And so that means whenever you use a spell on Jae Madarda to buff him, you're going to draw a card. And whenever he is the focus of an enemy spell as well and he survives, he's going to draw a spell. So a lot of times enemies, one, they don't want to attack him, but two, they kind of have to target him because we can make him super buff. So it kind of does put them in a little bit of a predicament. Either they need to target him with spells to get rid of him, or he can just sit there and indefinitely draw spells with or draw cards with our own spells. So kind of a funny way to use him. Now, the reason we're running the Starlit Seer, of course, is because we have so many spells in this deck. It's really easy to buff our units and buff Jae Madarda before he even comes out, and to buff the 2 champions that we're running in this deck, Braum and Vi. Both of them work really well when buffed. Both of them have Challenger. Both of them have awesome abilities that work really well with increased stats. So Braum has regeneration, and he also will produce Mighty Poros, and Vi has tough, making it even harder to kill her when she is even more powered up by the Starlit Seer. And also she can she'll have an increased attack stat, which is going to help her level up even faster than she normally would when you buff her with the Starlit Seer when she's on top of the deck. Other notable cards, we're running 2 Plaza Guardian, which again synergizes really well with the spells that we're using. By the end of the game, this is a kind of an easy finisher, and he hardly costs any mana at all because we've played so many cards. We're also running 2 Trail of Evidence, which once again can produce us units. It can produce us early game units if we haven't drawn any, and it can also produce more spells. It has the potential to kind of double down as a Starlit Seer ability enabler here. We're also running a full set of Avaros and Sentry for early game card draw. This one might be kind of cycled out. It kind of depends on how often you draw Jae Madarda, the usefulness of Avaros and Sentry, but I kind of like the card draw early on and allows us to kind of fill our hand and potentially draw Jae Madarda and Vi and Braum, who are our main win conditions in this deck. The last spell really we need to talk about is Sumpworks Map, which works really well with Jae Madarda again and with Vi. Both of them can deal a ton of damage to the Nexus. Jae Madarda will draw a card when you use Sumpworks Map on him as well, so just overall it really helps out. One of the main drawbacks of this deck is that we are running 20 units, 20 spells. However, 6 of these units are champions, and so they turn into champion spells. So there is at some point a lack of units. We can kind of counteract that with the amount of health gaining spells that we have in order to preserve a healthy board state and keep our units healthy. I may end up dropping the Avaros and Sentry for something like the Kindly Tavern Keeper, just for more sustain and also healing on our units and healing our Nexus, things like that. It kind of depends on how this goes in the next couple of days. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this deck. It works pretty well. Definitely not probably a top tier deck, but one that you can definitely use to spam Jae Madarda's ability. So anyway, that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks. Alright, so we're going against Swain, Twisted Fate, and Gangplank here. I don't really know the spread of his champions, of how many he has of each of them. So I don't really know what the other cards are going to be like here. I like my opening hand okay, everything except Jae Madarda, so I'm going to get rid of him and have him for later. Try to get some earlier cards here. Mystic Shot's okay as well because I can take out units if I need to. Alright, he plays his Dreadway deckhand, so I'm going to shoot it with Mystic Shot. I don't really want to help Gangplank level up here by giving him easy access to my Nexus, so I'm going to make it a little bit hard for him. Take that out and delay that a little bit. Alright, we draw Jae Madarda. Still, I would like to have seen some of my earlier cards here. I'm running a full set of Omen Hawk and Avaros and Sentry. That would have been nice. He gets a really good card here with his Petty Officer. That sucks for me. This is going to deal extra damage to the Nexus with the barrel. Alright, and then we can play Braum now. Take out the Saboteur here. He's got a Yordle Grifter, so he's already starting to nab some of my cards. The good thing about how nab was changed, though, is that it doesn't take it from the top of the deck anymore, so my buffed units aren't going to be stolen. That was a big problem before it was changed. You couldn't run these types of decks into Bilgewater because they would just steal all of your buffed units, and that really sucked. Alright, so he ends up playing his Gangplank here. We really only have one thing that we can do at this point, and that's the Omen Hawk. I don't really want to burn a ton of mana, but I'm not really going to have a choice here. We're going to play Bloodsworn Pledge just so that we don't burn all that mana. I would rather use that reactively when he attacks with Gangplank, but I don't want to waste all the mana. And it still works pretty well on Braum. Okay, so here we're drawing some of our smaller units now. I would have rather had that a little earlier, but not much I can do. I can block into the Gangplank here because I've got Fury of the North and Elixir of Iron, so I'm going to be able to protect my Braum. Now we're going to play Jae Madarda as well and start getting some card draw here. He's got a Dreadway deckhand again, and we are looking pretty good. I would have rather kept 4 mana if I could have, just so that I could have Fury of the North in case I need it, because like this, now he's using the red card, which is going to deal a lot of damage, and he's threatening the Braum. Fortunately, I still have an Elixir of Iron to place on Braum, so he won't die, and now this is going to level him up. He shouldn't have anything he can do with 1 mana to take Braum out, so I'm in a pretty good spot. Alright, so Braum levels up, really nice. Jae Madarda is looking a little bit sad here with only 1 health. We do have a way to protect him though with Fury of the North, and we've got some Works maps that we can put on him to draw some cards here. Okay, we draw a second Fury of the North, that's really nice. That takes it away from our opponent in case he draws it too, which would pose a really big threat to Braum here if he would put it on Gangplank. So I'm happy to have Fury of the North in hand so my opponent doesn't have it. Alright, so he's threatening some spells here. It looks like he drew my Trail of Evidence from his nab, so that gives me some information of what he has. And then he's got to make it rain. So he's threatening my Jae Madarda, which I can use Fury of the North on. We draw an Elixir of Iron, which is also a really nice draw here in case he's got other spells to get rid of my units. He used... we're okay with him hitting the Braum here because we're going to produce this Mighty Poro. No problem with that. Alright, and we're going to attack with all of our units here and try to clear up his board. We're threatening quite a bit of damage here, so he's going to have to block. So he decides to trade all of his units down except for his Gangplank, it looks like. Once again, if he's got any spells, we have a backup with Elixir of Iron. I'm also happy to take out this Twisted Fate, so hopefully he doesn't have anything that is going to Let's go and save Twisted Fate because I would really like to get to kill him before he levels up. Alright, so we clear out his board here, and we are going to replenish ours a little bit with the Mighty Poro. And we get some decent card draw this turn. So, as you can see with Jae Madarda, and we also had help from the Avaros and Sentry as well, our hand state's looking pretty good, all things considered. Alright, so we get a Mystic Shot. He's got Warning Shot, so... and Black Market Merchant. Okay, I'm okay with that. He's stealing our cards, but we're in a pretty good spot here. We're going to play our Avaros and Sentry here. So he's not going to want to attack with all of his units, most likely. Okay, he has Pilfered Goods. That's expected. I considered using the Mystic Shot on the Black Market Merchant, but decided not to because it was more than likely that he had the Pilfered Goods in hand, and I would rather use Mystic Shot on something else. Alright, and then he drew our Static Shock. He is targeting Jae Madarda, so that tells me he probably doesn't know how that works, because this is going to draw me a card as well. I get the Starlit Seer, a really nice card for me to use. I would have liked to have this a little earlier, but we can start buffing up our other cards, potentially a Vi. That'd be really nice. And he doesn't want to attack us, so we are okay with that. Now if we open attack here, we have a pretty decent attack. So we're going to, oh, and then he surrendered. So yeah, we probably would have been able to finish him out here just because we had Fury of the North. If not, it would have been really close. But yeah, anyway, ends up surrendering, so we end up getting the victory here. So yeah, you can see how Jae Madarda can get some good card draw and win us the game.